Hello there. So today we are going to look at the moment of truth theory and marketing framework as part of the third lesson or day 3 of the Circle Hosts in Training program. So without further ado, let's just quickly jump into it. So last time we covered customer personas and value propositions, and the homework that you took home with you was to produce a customer persona, something similar to this Deborah Pryor one that I'm showing you here on screen. Really, if you haven't done a customer persona yet in this sort of detail, then please do so as soon as you possibly can, because it's seriously going to help you out in what I'm about to show you next. The same with the value proposition exercise. The value proposition exercise should only take 15-20 minutes maximum, but it is quite important for the next step that we're about to cover off here. So what are we going to look at today? Well, today we're going to first off look at Google's moment of truth theory, and then we're going to look at how to build a marketing framework based on that moment of truth theory. It sounds like a lot of big words, but actually, when you see it, it's pretty. It's really the application of your own human experience. So, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So, we're going to go to a video here produced by Google back in 2012. It's only about 1 minute 43 seconds. So, let's just let that go.
Marketers have been using a 3-step mental model of marketing for a long time. Stimulus, like developing a TV ad. Shelf, focusing on point of sale, which has historically been called the first moment of truth. And experience. People take the product home and experience it. They could have a good experience or a bad experience, and they share it. This is the second moment of truth. If marketers spend time on these 3 steps, they should succeed, right? We investigated this theory. We conducted a comprehensive study with research partner Shopper Sciences using 5,000 shoppers across 12 categories, from groceries to cars and financial products. The goal, show where influence takes place as shoppers move from undecided to decided. We found that the average shopper used 10.4 sources of information, up from 5.3 sources in 2010. We asked shoppers what sources they used to make decisions, when they used it, and how influential is each source. When we lined up their responses, a 4th step appeared in the marketing mental model, the 0 moment of truth. This is when consumers do their research, get smart about alternatives, read reviews, look for coupons and comparison shop, all before going to the shelf. When we compare the steps, the 0 moment of truth pops up as highly relevant and influential. Consumers have changed the way they have approached decision making. As a marketer, have you kept up, or are you still using the old mental model? There's a new mental model now, and marketers that can now keep all these steps spinning gain a very competitive advantage in today's marketplace.
And you're back in the room. Welcome back. So the first thing to ask is what you've just seen. Is it anything new? No, not really. Google claims it's new. They claimed that once they and Shopping Insights had done all the research that they did in 2010, that in fact they found this new magical thing called the 0 moment of truth. Actually, we've all been doing it for 100,000 years. If you think of any action that you take when you're purchasing a product or buying a membership or becoming a member of a circle or whatever it may be, you tend to go through all of these stages. The first one is, let's just to recap slightly, is the stimulus and awareness phase. This awareness where you first become aware of, in this case, a Bismarck circle or Bismarck itself, or if you're talking about producing a marketing program, about that particular brand or product. The stimulus is when actually you are stimulated to go and take some action, to take it to the next stage. So you may well have heard of the brand a number of times, or the item, or the circle a number of times, but you've never actually done anything about it. But in this particular occasion, you're stimulated to take some action. And when you're stimulated to take some action, that first thing is that you're going to do is research. As I say, Google thinks that they invented this, but we've all been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. The example I usually use in this part of this presentation is referring to my dad buying a new car back in the 1980s. back then he would have some form of awareness that he needed to change his car, and that might be that he'd had it for 3 years, or the gearbox was beginning to go, or whatever it may be. But now he has a stimulus to go and do it, like the gearbox is beginning to go, or whatever. So the next thing he's going to do is going to make some form basic decisions of what type of car he needs, as in it needs to be an estate with a manual gearbox, etc. And so off he toddles down to whatever town you're in. You'll probably have an area where there's lots of car lots, and then my father would go from Lancia to Saab to Ford to BMW to Mercedes to wherever, and talk to the sales guys and take the brochures, etc. Of course, then he would go away and make a decision about which one he wanted to test drive, and then he'd come back in again and do the test drives, and then he would make a decision probably there was probably one would be his favorite. And that's kind of the research phase done in that example. From there on, he would then move into the first moment of truth, where he's wanting to make a real commitment to that sales process that he is in, and so at which point he then starts talking to the salesperson, and doing a deal, maybe on trade-in values, or what were the finance arrangements, etc. Deal closed, takes the car home. And then he's into the second moment of truth, and essentially the second moment of truth being where you talk about, or did you get the experience that you were expecting and have paid for, probably. In this case that we've just been using about my dad's car, he probably had the car for the next 3 years, and what decides his second moment of truth would be, did it do what it said on the tin? Did he get the fuel economy that he wanted? Was the car reliable for as long as he wanted? Did he get the after sales care that he was expecting? And so on. So that second moment of truth can go on for a very, very long time, depending on how long people are going to stay a member of your circle, or how long they're going to retain the item that they've bought, etc. One thing that Google didn't mention, bearing in mind it was done in 2012, you would have thought they might have done just when social media was really beginning to take off, was the ultimate moment of truth. And the ultimate moment of truth is what you are willing to put your name to. I.e., let's say my father bought a Lexus. Would he be willing to tell his friend? So if a friend of his asked him and said, "Oh, Alan, would you like to buy a car? Or would you recommend that I buy a Lexus?" Well, it's actually 3 times easier for somebody to give a bad recommendation than it is to give them a positive recommendation. The reason being that it's about social risk. If I give a positive recommendation and you have a bad experience, or if my father gives a positive rap to his experience, but the person who has asked the question originally gets a bad experience, then my father might feel that person might blame him for giving for his bad experience. It's not his fault actually, but subconsciously they might think that way, or people do think that way. It's actually far safer for him to say, "Yeah, no, it's a great car, but you know what? I'm not entirely sure I'd do it again, and I've had a few issues." At which point, the person who's giving the advice to has 2 options really. He can say, "Oh, great stuff. Not going to buy that car. Thanks for helping me out and dodging the bullet. Hope your experience gets better." At which point, my father then has social proof because he's helped somebody out to make for what that person thinks is a better decision. But also, if the guy who's taking the advice decides to not take the advice and buy the Lexus anyway and has a great experience, then when he comes back to my father and says, "Well, actually, I bought one after all, and I had a really good experience," at which point I go, "Well done, excellent. Just you're the lucky one. You got a much better experience than I did." So it is much, much easier to get a positive feedback from the person that you're giving the recommendation to if you give a negative feedback. Hence, that's why getting positive feedback that you can use, that people will put their name to, is such a big deal. And when you'll see we're going to go through a little exercise now, and you'll see how important that is in a minute. So it says there, let's try a little exercise. Well, let's crack on and do it, shall we? So while we're doing this, we're going to have our, let's just quickly touch on our demonstration players. Just for an example, we're going to have a hero product. Now, bearing in mind that we're talking about products here, whereas your product could be your Bismarck circle, or actually your own products. This applies to anything and everything. We'll talk about that in a minute. So our hero product today is a product called Pizza Dough. To give you a very brief outline of what it is, Pizza Dough is a couple of frozen dough balls, a very nice dough, and some frozen mozzarella cheese, and some frozen tomato sauce, and some frozen pepperoni bits that you can defrost, roll out, and make your own pizzas, and then chuck whatever toppings you want on top as well as the pepperoni. So it helps you can empty the fridge with it. The second demonstration players that we have are our hero personas. And so here we have Debs Pryor, who you might have seen in previous recordings, in fact in previous demonstrations. The other half of Deb's personality is that I think she's a finance director somewhere. Debs doesn't actually exist, and nor do her kids. Who are John Jr. and Daisy, I think these children are called, but I would have to check the personas. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to list out the customer journey, or the actions that take place in a customer journey. And in this particular case, this is a mum, a young mum, or certainly a mum with young kids, and she's also part of a relaxing couple. Now, in this particular example that we were talking about, when we're talking about Pizza Dough, that the first thing that she'll probably do when she hears about the product is she'll go online and do the research. And we can just add a little bit more here. We can see that in this case, when she goes online, she's going to look at our competitors' websites and social media. She'll definitely go to our website and our Facebook, our Twitter. You can tell this was done a couple of years ago because there's no Instagram shown there, and so on. But for each product or each circle that you're producing, it's going to be different. But bear in mind, just put in there what the actions she's likely to take he or she is likely to take when they first go on, first doing that research with you. Now that research might not be online. It just happens to be, in this case, it's online. Also in this case, the product was not available to be bought online. You had to go into store to pick it up. So, of course, Debs' next action is going to be arrive in store, where again she is going to start looking. She's going to start looking at other pizza products or competitive pizza products, and maybe even other frozen products while we're there. Then she moves to making her in-store purchase. She takes it home. She has to defrost it, and she has to prepare it. She has to cook it. She then enjoys the eat, and then they clear up, and she shares the news. And when we're saying preparing or cooking, in this case, we expect that the children will help her and take part. And it's actually quite good fun. It gets flour everywhere and kids love it. So the next stage that we're going to do is remembering our 5 zero moment of truth phases, or moment of truth phases: stimulus awareness, zero moment of truth, first moment of truth, second moment of truth, ultimate moment of truth. You then start applying these dotted blue lines, the horizontal ones running left to right. Now, you put your blue lines up or down wherever you want. It depends entirely on the customer journey that you're putting together, where you want to make that natural break. It may be down to where your existing KPIs are, or where you want to put your KPIs, and you'll see where we're going with that in a minute. But essentially, it's entirely up to you to put that conversion line where you think it's appropriate. But do make sure that you have all 5 of the moments of truth phases. Now, once we've done that, our next stage is to identify the need that customer has in each one of those phases. So, for example, in this particular example, that in the stimulus and awareness phase, let's assume that Debs doesn't actually know of us or has heard of us a couple of times, but she hasn't taken any action. She at that stage has no specific need for our product or our circle. She has a general need that she needs to feed her kids. And if at all possible, she'd like to do something different but simple. Now, when she is aware of us or become aware of us and she's been stimulated to take some action, we then know that she's going to go online, and in that stage, okay, her needs have changed. It's very important to understand that her needs have changed. We have answered the problem, her need that she needs to feed her kids, and we can provide something different but simple. So she's okay. Now she's going, okay, I believe that. Tell me about, or I'm now interested in, does it taste good? Is it nutritious? Is it easy and fun? Can I get my kids to come and help? Is it good value? And because I'm feeding it to my children, is it free from? So let's assume that we have answered those questions for her in our customer journey. Then in fact, actually, when it comes to that first moment of truth, where she's going to make the actual purchase, just be aware, first moment of truth doesn't necessarily have to be a purchase. It just has to be when they make some form of positive commitment to your business or to your circle or whatever it may be. So, for example, if in circles, if you are giving away or you're going to invite people into a circle where they have 30 days free to start with, that might still be considered in that zero moment of truth when they're doing the research on you. And so your first moment of truth would be when they first start paying to stay to maintain or to remain a member of your circle. So back to Debs though, in this first moment of truth, she still has, in this case, an issue with taste, just to make sure that so if she can get a taste in store, then great. She has now started a bit more interested in value and price. But also put yourself in her shoes. She's highly likely to have kids nagging her at the store or at the checkout, and it needs to be easy to grab. She needs to be able to see it, chuck it in. She's got a big basket of shopping that she needs to get through, and so she doesn't want to be spending time running up and down the aisles looking for this product. So it needs to be easy to find and grab. She then makes her purchase. She takes the goods home, at which point, when she takes in this case, the pizza dough out of the freezer, she has to defrost it. She then has to do the prep, i.e. she has to roll it out and put the tomato sauce and the mozzarella on top, add whatever else that she wants to add from the fridge, cook it, and then once it's cooked, she sits down and with the kids and enjoys the eat, and then clears up. Now, again, note that the needs have changed again. So it needs to be easy. It needs other ingredients from the fridge. The kids need to enjoy it. It needs to taste great. We've told her again and again that it tastes great. Now it needs to actually taste great. And the whole thing, it's a bit of a palaver. It needs to be worth it. So again, needs have changed. Now, when it gets that ultimate moment of truth, is she or isn't she going to share the news? And if she does, her need is that she needs to think, she has a need that the whole process from start to finish was great. And that's what we want to encourage. So we've done the needs. What do we do next? The next thing that I actually do is we start building our message column. Now, your message, and I'm sorry we haven't got the value proposition put in here, but the value proposition here is, I think it was easy, educating, and fun, or something like that. So anyway, the message here is a combination of using your value proposition or the principles of your value proposition to answer their need. And the second thing is here, when we're saying the messaging, this is the general messaging. It may not be the actual words that you use in your ads or on your website or whatever, but this is the message in very brief form that you want to get across. Now, if the needs change in each of these areas, thus the messaging will change. So you'll see in this messaging column, you'll see that we have the top one is easy, educating, and fun, and it's easy just how you like it. And then in the zero moment of truth, yes, we have just how you like it again, but we're now answering, is it nutritious? With it's all natural. It's easy, educating, and fun, and clear the value. It's clear. Well, the demonstration of value is that you can clear the fridge of leftovers, and so on. Is it free from? And we should have something in there yet, but yes, it is free from everything. Get into that first moment of truth, and her needs have changed again, so therefore the messaging needs to change again. At this point, it's probably a lot more immediate, like tasty. It's tasty. Try it. It's a great price, or here it is. We're not talking about this at this stage about clearing the fridge of leftovers, because she's not sat on the bus on their phone or at a desk or a desktop. She's actually in the shop with kids nagging her, and so our message is different again. When we get into that second moment of truth, our messaging changed again. You can see that when we did this, we actually wasn't until we sat down and went through the whole process that we suddenly realized that, in fact, the defrosting in this particular case was a bit of an issue, because it's not like other frozen pizza products that where you take it out of the freezer and bung it in the oven, it's ready 20 minutes later. This one you didn't. You had to defrost the dough properly. And that could take 6 or 7 hours. So at which point we need to be doing something along the lines of saying, don't forget to defrost. But we could also be saying you can clear the fridge of leftovers, get the kids to do it, they'll love it, and so on. And then that ultimate moment of truth, and getting Debs to share what she thought of that ultimate of the whole process, we start asking her questions. How much did you like it? That's our message to her. How much did you like that whole process? The final element of building this customer framework or marketing framework is we then look at the media column. Now note that the media, when we talk about media here, it's not necessarily a traditional media such as TV or newspapers or even social media such as Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Media in this case is anything or any way that a message is communicated. So it could be word of mouth. It could be through handwritten pieces of paper. It could be written in petals on a beach. That would be the media that we're talking about here. So in the media column, in this particular case, it's likely that Debs might have heard it from word of mouth from other mums. The kids might have heard it as word of mouth from other kids, but it might have been in her Facebook newsfeed as a share, or it may be in a Facebook newsfeed as a sponsored post. When she gets into that zero moment of truth, that research phase, we can be pretty sure that in fact actually she's going to go to our website, our Facebook page, our app. She may well do a Google search. So this is when you start beginning to understand what search terms you should be setting up for and prepping with in your SEO, where you're leading you down your keyword research. She may well use YouTube. Don't forget that YouTube is the second largest search engine on earth. It's highly likely that she'll look for reviews and review sites and retailer sites and so on and so forth. Again, bearing in mind that this is particular to Debs and this particular brand of food. You get the idea. So when we get into the first moment of truth, we're in store now, so we can have a taste team. We can be producing point of sale such as trays, buckets, bins, aisle signage, etc. Again, your first moment of truth might be you on the phone talking to a potential member, or it might be one of your members talking to a potential new member, one of your existing members. So in that case, the media would be your existing members talking to other potential members. Classic member get member scheme. In this case, back to Pizza Do and Debs. In this case, that she might have to the media that we're getting into in the second moment of truth is probably going to be in the packaging, or anything else that we can use within the kitchen. So, for example, when we were addressing this defrost problem, one of the things that we produced was fridge magnets. And that became part of the media. So we fridge magnets and so on. And then the last one, and the ultimate moment of truth, their Facebook news feed and shares, our Facebook news feed and shares. In our when we're looking at our Bismarang circles, part of the media there is going to be other circles and members of other circles, and sharing to other members in other circles and getting recommendations from other members in other circles or other circle hosts. But that won't be the only one. It will be whatever target audience, whoever your target persona is, will dictate what media will be best suited at that point. The final thing to remember is you should review this on a regular basis. And if you produce another persona, you need to produce another marketing framework. This is specifically built specifically for devs prior. So, one thing or a couple of things that you need to remember. Time spent in each phase will vary, but customers will not miss out a phase in the process. And that is so important. That's why I'm reading it word for word. Time spent in each phase will vary, but customers will not miss out a phase in the process. So customers will not be, once they've become stimulated or aware of you, they will not just jump straight into making a purchase. They will always do some form of research. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling polo cars, polo ponies, polo horses, or polo mints. It applies to everyone that you do. Just the only difference is how long people are actually spending in each phase. Hence, that's why when you produce any form of communication, media communication, that there are two types of message held in that communication. The first one is the message that we just looked at, in that particular phase, such as it's really nutritious or it tastes great, or whatever it may be. But the second message in there is the call to action. And that call to action is what you want that potential customer or potential new member to do next. I.e., visit our website, or click this button, or need to know more, do this. Call this number. Send me an email. Fill in this form. Because otherwise, you've answered all the messaging and all the questions, and the customer goes, "That's great, thanks very much." Well, what do I do now? Sorry, what do I do now? Click this button, and when they click that button, you're moving them down the funnel. You're moving them into the next stage of that moment of truth. So your primary aim in any sales or any membership recruitment is not to give people a hard sell, is to move them, to make them aware, and move them into or attract them into their research phase, the 0 moment of truth, then attract them into that first moment of truth where they make a decision and join or buy or whatever it may be. In that second moment of truth, to make sure that they get the experience that they are looking forward to, because you will not get a good positive review in that ultimate moment of truth unless they have had a good positive experience in that second moment of truth. Doesn't need to have been good and positive all the way through. You might have made some mistakes, or the product didn't do what they expected it to do. But usually you'll find that if you behave honorably and quickly, then you may well get a positive review out of that. But again, the point being is that you need to be looking at the entire process, whether it be running a pizza do business, or running a car mechanic shop, or recruiting members into a circle, into a Bismarck circle. It's not just about attracting them in or making them aware. It's about understanding that they need to do their research and feel comfortable in there, and that they are going to make that decision to join or to purchase. And then when they're there, you need to make sure that their experience, it doesn't need to necessarily come from you, their experience of the circle is what they expected and is beneficial to them. And therefore they will then share the news. Final bit of this lesson. That ultimate moment of truth bit is so important these days with the advent of what we do with these things. If you remember back to the, let me just show you here. When you go back to, when we go back to this thing, when so you see the arrows, these blue arrows come all the way down here, and you come into the ultimate moment of truth, and they come back in again. And when somebody gives you a good positive review, you're actually bringing that new person, you're actually bringing them all the way through because you're saying, oh, have you seen our Bismarck Circle? That's when you make them a stimulus and awareness. Why don't you come and check us out? At which point they're in here. And then they make their own decision to, or whatever however your funnel is, that you bring them into this next stage. In general terms, whether it be marketing a product or getting members into a Bismarck Circle, these two areas here, these stimulus awareness phase and zero moment of truth, are the expensive ones, are the really expensive ones. Sometimes the first moment of truth, if you're paying somebody commission, can be expensive as well. However, but these two in particular are usually the most expensive. So therefore, if you can get somebody to make that recommendation for you and bring people back in to the system, or take them in through the top and take them through that part of the system for you, then you've just saved yourself a huge bucket load of money. So when people say, oh, we don't really use social media, we shouldn't really be using social media in our business, I'd say you should take a very, very good, hard, long look, because particularly if you're spending a lot of money on advertising in the stimulus and awareness phase. So, having done all that, what have we got? We have determined who we're going to tell, what we're going to tell them, and where we're going to deliver the messaging. So we could now create a task list and a marketing plan, and you can actually provide some accurate cost forecasts, but that's something else that we will get into in our next lesson. So your homework today will be a marketing framework. Do at least one for your own sweet spot customers. There will be an example in the daily news that we do on a daily basis, summarizing this whole presentation. As usual, you know where I am. When you see, if you PM me or whatever you need to do to get hold of me, either in the chit chat or just PM me and the members. But ideally, if you've got questions, etc., and they're all perfectly reasonable, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Please actually do it in the open forum of the chit chat forum of the chit chat circle. Then everybody gets to see and learn from those from your question as well. So thank you very much. Hope that was worth it. Speak to you all soon. Bye bye.